Brian, if Aaron comes to you and says he wants a trade, are you going to be any more willing to trade him than you were last offseason, or are you still saying you're not trading him?
Yeah, no, Matt, those are kind of some hypotheticals. I don't think we're going to go down those roads right now.
While you're waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make his decision about his future and finalize that, how does that affect your other decisions for the organization going forward?
Yeah, I think, obviously everything around here kind of centers around the quarterback. That's kind of how we do things. So it's a big piece. It's a domino that kind of has to fall before we go down, other avenues. So it's important, as we go through this and the puzzle pieces that we got to make fit, I think. So that's the first one to go. So.
Ryan, how hamstrung are you right now, just not knowing whether you can execute plan A, B, C, or whatever?
Not really. I mean, we've been working through this, a long time. Russ and I have obviously been working through, ever since the pandemic kind of hit, we've been working through a lot of scenarios. And so we're kind of like, again, there's some timing elements to things. And we've had really good conversations with Aaron and everybody throughout the process. So, there's some timing things that obviously come into play. But again, we've kind of got it mapped out.
The franchise tag window is open right now. Are you going to use that on Devontae Adams?
Yeah, again, another hypothetical. So we'll kind of, it's not something we like to do. We'd certainly, not like to do that if we don't have to. We'd certainly like to come up with a long-term deal that works for both sides. But that's, it's a hypothetical that a lot of things have to happen before we get to that point.
Well, in terms of your plan, is there a scenario in which you wouldn't tag or extend Devontae Adams? Could he walk, or could you let him walk?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, again, like I said, I think there's a lot of things to be determined there.
I think at the start of training camp last year, you and Aaron both characterized your relationship as professional. How would you characterize it now? Has it changed at all since the last several months?
Yeah, no, like I said, I think I've spoken on this before, but it was, I think this coming into the season after everything that had happened in last summer was difficult, I think, for both Aaron and the organization, but got to give him a lot of credit with the way he came in. I mean, what he gave to our organization and the team this year was impressive, and I credit a lot of that to him and the way he came in and our relationship now. I mean, it's like I said, I think I'm very, very positive about it.
Brian, is there, we all know what the calendar looks like. We know March 16th, we know the tag ends on the 8th and all that stuff. But has the organization given Aaron a hard and fast date? Listen, we need to know by this time.
Again, those aren't things that I would, speak about here. But no, I think, again, this has been more of a conversation about kind of where we're headed and together. And that's, there's a process that obviously we're going through. There's a process that he's going through, and I think we're very respectful of that.
Do you see an avenue to retaining Aaron Rodgers without Devontae Adams?
Again, hypotheticals, but yeah, I kind of think everything's open at this point.
Brian, where is Jordan at in his development?
I thought last spring was a really good period of time for him to kind of have all the reps to himself and go through. I think obviously during the NFL season, it's tough as a backup quarterback with the way we do things nowadays to develop. But at the same time, I thought he made some really good strides. And really excited to kind of see where he goes from here. You know what I mean? I think obviously I'm sure he would like, for some things to have been different in the games that he did play. But I thought there were some really positive signs throughout the year, especially in the spring.
Brian, can you give us any idea what it's like juggling roster value versus cap value on a daily basis with these guys?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's, the pandemic certainly, threw a wrench into everything, as far as the salary cap numbers and where they'd been so steady for so long. And then all of a sudden you kind of, had that comforting feeling of where it was going to be. And when that kind of changed, certainly where our team was at, made it a little bit more difficult. But we're very hopeful we're coming out of that. We're excited to get out of that. And we got a really good football team, and we're excited to add to that this spring and see where we can go. So,
Ryan, is there a scenario where you could keep Rodgers, keep Adams, and still be competitive by building around them without just destroying your salary cap?
Yeah, I feel very confident about that. I do. I think, again, I got to give a lot of credit to Russ. He does an excellent job, and we've worked through a lot of different scenarios. There's always challenges, but having good players here, you work around that. And I think having those guys here certainly makes us a very good football team.
How disappointing was the end of that season for you and knowing the roster that you put together? And what do you need to do if everyone does come back to actually get over that hump? Because it seems like you've been so close and just haven't been able to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Yeah, very disappointed. I mean, I think we were, you know, to accomplish what those guys accomplished, to put ourselves in that position, and to, you know, kind of waste that opportunity. That was very difficult to walk away from that game. At the same time, I was very proud of what those guys did during the regular season to put us in that position. I think we've done some things over the past few years to become a more rugged football team, not only defensively but offensively as well. And I think, you know, again, this is a tough league. You got to give credit to the San Francisco 49ers coming in here and beating us on our home turf. Yeah, it's those games are hard, and they stick with you for a long time. And I think it kind of gets you back to the drawing board and energizes you to try to get through that.
What are you guys missing? To have accomplished all that and still not get there, what are you guys missing right now?
Yeah, I don't know if we're missing anything. I don't look at it that way. I think we just have to play better in those moments. You know, a couple years in a row now that we haven't kind of played our best game, our best ball at the time we needed to, and I think that we need to be able to do that. And there's a lot that factors into that, but I don't think there's like one thing we're missing. I don't look at building a football team like that.
Brian, how big of a factor is just that your quarterback has to play better in those games?
Yeah, I think as a team we got to play better. You know, it's not just, I don't think it's just one player or anything. Obviously, we have the MVP of the league, so I'm pretty pleased with his performance. But I think as a team, you got to complement each other. And there's going to be days where, you know, certain units on our team are playing well, and then there's days when they're not, and the other units got to pick that up. And I think that, you know, I think we'll get there. I think we got there a lot this year in different ways, just not at that moment.
Brian, what's the excitement level to finally see people back in person for the combine?
Oh yeah, it's yeah. No, this last few weeks and heading into the combine is obviously a favorite time of mine as we start to kind of build the 22 Packers, and the scouts were back in those last few weeks and preparing for that. And it's yeah, this is the part of the job I probably love the most. So it's exciting, and it's again, you know, I know there's been a lot of changes in the combine, and Jeff Foster and that crew that runs it, they do a phenomenal job. And if they're left alone to do it, I think it'll be good this year. So I'm excited to get there.
From your perspective, what stands out about this draft class? Where do you see kind of strengths or weaknesses?
Yeah, we just got through it, and it'll be good to see the guys live and have a little bit better feel once we get through the combine. But it's another good offensive line class, which is good. I thought the offensive skill positions were deeper than they have been maybe in the past. The pass rush group is deeper than it has been in a while. So, but overall, I think it's good. I think it's an interesting year because there were so many guys that opted back in to play in the college season last year. So the numbers are way up across the board, especially kind of like in the bottom half of the draft. I think the numbers are just much bigger than they have been in the past.
Okay, Goody, I know in the first couple of years you appreciated having Ted as a resource. Guessing you probably could have had some conversations with him the last couple of year and change. I'm just wondering, I know you were in Raleigh, but those first 3 years that he was GM and the uncertainty with Brett's situation, is there anything you can take from what this organization went through with Brett that you can apply to how you're handling where you're at with the current quarterback?
I think they're two different situations. And to be fair, Jason, I wasn't here on a day-to-day basis to really, have my kind of finger on the pulse of what was going on. And a lot of what I know about that time is more, kind of third-hand information. At the same time, I think the most important thing is we build the football team. I think that's the most important. You don't ever stop building our football team and trying to get better. And then I think, certainly through the last, 3 years or so, just kind of like, learning what is important, to our players, and I think it's a changing environment that way.
Well, Brian, you've talked about so much respect you've had for Ted and what you learned from him, and everybody around here talks about his integrity, and he talked about Ron a lot. But what's happened in the last year or two, maybe, and with Aaron, have you had to change maybe some of those things, the way things were done here in the past with players?
I think you're constantly evolving. I don't think we change our integrity in the way we approach things. I think that's the one thing about this organization that makes you proud to work here, especially as long as I've been here, is we do things honestly and by the rules, by the book, kind of sort of thing. I think there's certainly, you're always kind of evolving and trying to become better at what you tweaking the process, so to speak, to become better. And yeah, there's no doubt that the last couple of years have impacted how we go about our business, no doubt.
What can you share of where things are at with Douglas and Campbell at this point?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into individual contract stuff and anything like that. Obviously, those two guys had great years for us. We would love to be able to retain them and keep going forward, and we're excited about that. But yeah, no updates on that.
This is not a Campbell question per se, but the organization hasn't really prioritized that position over the years, and maybe as Ted said, that's just the way that worked out. But
yeah.
Does the play of Devondre, does that maybe show you the value of that position a little bit more? Again, I'm not asking about Devondre per se.
Yeah, no, I think, first of all, I don't think we've not valued that position. I think we've always valued that position. Certainly his play, I think whenever you have a player that plays at his level, regardless of the position he plays, when guys play at that level, it impacts your team significantly. And Dre's impact on our football team was significant this year. So, but as far as undervaluing, I don't think we've ever undervalued the position. I think it's just, we were very fortunate to get Dre in here and kind of let him loose. I think this might have been one of the first times in his career where he felt like he was really kind of let loose to be the player that we saw out there this past fall.
Brian, you've been in the organization obviously a long time. How has the kind of philosophical approach of managing the cap evolved to where you are now?
Yeah, I think there's always things, there's trends in the league that are changing, the way contracts are done and the way different teams, and you're always studying those, and getting, Russ does a fantastic job of kind of staying up to date with the way things are going in the league. But certainly, I think it's really dependent on the situation that your football team is in. And the situation our football team is in right now, and again, going through a pandemic, but we're trying to compete for a Super Bowl. So we've had to be creative to look at, alternative kind of thoughts maybe than we've had in the past and to stay in that competition, and we'll continue to do that.
Along those lines, how much are you hoping or counting on the lifeline that the salary cap is going to go up in probably 2 years from now and resume its meteoric rise? I mean, is that kind of what some of these calculations are banking on?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're kind of preparing for all situations. Certainly going through a pandemic has taught us that we have to be prepared for just about anything, but I do think there's some hope, some light at the end of that tunnel. We're gonna make it to a different kind of state of mind, so to speak.
What kind of conversations have you had with Aaron Rodgers this offseason, and have you given him a deadline to make a decision about his future?
Yeah, again, we're no deadlines. We're working together. I think the conversations after the season were very impactful, and I appreciated them very much, and congratulated on the MVP. I mean, that's what a special night that was. But as far as we're working together. We're not putting deadlines on anything. Again, there are some timing things that will come into play where we will have to make decisions down the road. But Aaron's well aware of that, and like I said, the communication's been very good.
How anxious though are you as GM for him to make a decision, kind of move forward?
Yeah, like I said, the earlier the better. But depending on what that decision is, Again, we've talked about this at length, and he's very well aware of our timeline, yeah, I'm very hopeful that those things will happen the right way they're supposed to, and I believe they will.
Aaron has said multiple times since the season ended that his relationship with you is vastly improved. How would you characterize where your relationship is, and how much did that require you to maybe change philosophically and how you deal with players, especially him, to improve that relationship?
Yeah, no, I'm very appreciative of the kind of the links that Aaron and the conversations that we had throughout the season. And again, I've always appreciated those conversations. They were more frequent for sure this year, and I think I'd like to believe we've gotten to a better place, and I appreciate his comments to that fact. And I think, and again, like I said, I think Aaron's different. He's different than any player when you're the franchise quarterback, you're going to have more conversations with me than maybe a lot of players. But at the same time, I think as we move forward, he talked very much about being in the conversations and things that affected his job, and I appreciate that very much, and I understand where he's coming from. So, no, it's been good, and it's, again, in a much better place.
Your early talks with other free agents, do you get the feel that they'd be more willing, that some of them might be more willing to take a team-friendly deal if 12 is a quarterback, Devontae's back? Do you get that kind of feeling at all from?
Again, those are hypotheticals. I would say that whenever you have a quarterback of Aaron's kind of stature, that tends to attract other players.
What was the process like bringing back Tom Clements to the organization? And was that a move, kind of like Randall Cobb last year, to maybe make your quarterback a little more happy?
No, I wouldn't characterize it like that. I think it's an example of how Aaron is part of the conversation of things that do affect his job, though. I think him and Matt, and that's really probably a better question for Matt, because obviously he was the one doing the hiring. But Tom Clements, I had had the opportunity to be around him in the past, obviously, and he's an excellent football coach, whether Aaron was here or not. What he's accomplished in this league and the way he's developed quarterbacks is impressive. So, but certainly, that decision, that Aaron's impact in that decision was, that's part of the conversations that he's not, is part of what it would have been probably anyway. But we're excited to have him back and see how he kind of affects that group.
Every offseason has its own challenges, but you've got the uncertainty with your quarterback. You got one of the best players in the league who's a free agent. You got a bunch of other key pieces that are free agents. You moved heaven and earth on the salary cap last year, now you're going to do it again. Do you think this is the most challenging offseason you've faced during your time here?
That's an interesting question. I guess we're just getting started, to a certain degree, so we'll see. But no, I don't really look at it that. To your point, every offseason there's challenges and decisions and choices that we have to make. This is no different. I think there's been a lot made of it. It's maybe not, I think, again, we've been working on it for so long, like the paths to where we need to get have been so much more clearer maybe to us than maybe what's out there. But yeah, again, we have a really good football team, and I think we have a lot of opportunities to bring guys back that will make us that again next year. You know what I mean? So I understand your question. I think we'll see, but I don't expect that.
Brian, there's Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas. What did you guys see? And talk about how they became such a success for you last year.
Yeah, I think there are two different cases. In Devondre's case, like he was a couple of years ago, he was a free agent, ended up signing with Arizona. We were very interested in him at that time, and it just didn't work out financially with what we were doing. But we were kind of going down that road with him at that time, and then this past year it was no different. Again, we had, with the pandemic and the salary cap challenges that we had, we were kind of limited to what we could do, and I didn't expect him to kind of move through free agency like he did and be available at the end there. I think once he did, obviously we stayed on it. I give our scouting staff a lot of credit to keeping in touch and making sure that they were very aware that we still would have liked him here. And then when the time came for him where he was going to make a decision, I think he looked at our situation and realized it was a pretty good one for him, and it couldn't have worked out better. The season he had, and I'm so impressed with the person and the player, and it made a world of difference for our defense. And like I said, we're very optimistic and hopeful to get him back into the fold. In Rasul's case, it was got to give Richmond Williams and our pro staff a lot of credit. When Jair went down with the injury that he had, we were looking for our different kind of options, and we sat down as a group and kind of went through the different options that we had, and we felt like he was the best one. Again, to predict what he was able to do for us, I'd be lying to you if I thought he was going to come here and have 5 picks or whatever he had and impact our team the way he did. But again, just credit to him, and his work ethic and not blinking and making the most out of his opportunity that was given to him, and then and the coaches' willingness to put him out there, after a very short period of time that he was here. I think that's not easy to do, sometimes, and but they trusted him, and he went out there and he proved them to be correct. So I think two great stories, and hopefully we'll have a chance to get those guys back.
Hey Brian, there's a report that Kenny Clark has got a restructure. Can you confirm that? And do you have an idea in your head how many more existing contracts are going to need some creativity to get to where you need to be?
Yeah, we did. We touched Kenny's contract, and there'll be many more that we touch along the way. I think again, a lot of it will be kind of as we go and what we need when we need it, so to speak. So, but obviously Kenny, obviously being kind of an anchor and a pillar of our defense, that was kind of an easy one to start out with.
Special teams issues you had last season, is it going to change your philosophy at all in terms of how you construct that back
Yeah.
into the roster? Will it cause any?
Yeah, really excited, to get Rich Bisaccia in here and spend some time with him. I've known him for a long time. Him and my dad, coached way back in South Carolina, so he's known me for a long time. And just watching his career and the success that he's had, we're excited to have him here. And he's obviously going to have a lot of influence on what we do in that area. But as far as philosophically, I wouldn't say there's a whole lot. I think we're definitely going to have to do some different things to become better in that area, because it's certainly something that's kind of dragged on here longer than we wanted to. I kind of thought in the middle of the season we had a chance to get better, and we didn't. Excited to kind of move forward with Rich and see where he's going to take that group. And again, but philosophically, how we build our team, I don't think will change a whole lot. We did some different things before the season to strengthen that area and during the season, and ultimately it didn't work out. So we're going to have to continue at it. But again, we're excited for Rich and what he might be able to do.
Brian, how do you feel about the franchise tag in general? Are you reluctant to use it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you haven't, as an organization, used it very often.
Yeah, it's obviously a tool that's made available to us, and if we need to use it, we certainly will. I think we'd love to come to an agreement before that. You know what I mean? But it is a tool to be able to protect one of your star players, and but at the same time, I think that's not the way. We kind of like to exhaust all options before we get to that point. But it is a tool that's available to us.
Brian, when it comes to the salary cap, I mean, obviously you're way over, and that's a concern. But others say there's a way that you can work it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is the truth in your mind somewhere in between?
No, I mean, again, it's there's always ways to do that. I think it's now there will always come a time where you gotta pay up, but no, like I said, we feel good about the different options we have available to us to do what we need with that. Again, not easy. There's going to be choices that have to be made. There'll be dominoes that fall that affect each and every player that we want to bring back or touch our contract, things like that. There's ways.
Ron, you said you were confident that if you can bring Aaron and Devontae back, you can field a competitive team. If they're not back, how confident are you that you will field a competitive team in 2022?
Yeah, we're going to field a competitive team regardless. I mean, I think we're the Green Bay Packers, and I think we've got a really good football team in front of us. Again, those are elite players, and whenever you have elite players, you feel good about that. And you may have to do things different ways if those hypotheticals come into play. But we'll see where it goes. But I like the nucleus and the core foundation of our football team.
On the cap, Brian, are you going to have to get rid of players eventually? Or do you think you can restructure or touch enough contracts to kind of avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a little bit of both, but I don't see us having to get rid of a bunch of players. I mean, like I said, we'll move through that as we go through it. But I think we have a lot of different options, and depending on kind of where we head. But this isn't going to be one of those things where it's not a fire sale where we're cutting a bunch of guys.
Brian, do you guys feel like there's any pressure on you guys to get a deal done with Devontae Adams, knowing that it might heavily affect Aaron Rodgers' decision moving forward?
Again, hypotheticals, but I don't really look at it. I don't feel the pressure of that, no.
Brian, are you taking any calls about Jordan Love? I mean, do you get the sense that teams around the league look at the roster here and think there's a young franchise quarterback waiting for a shot?
Yeah, this isn't that time, but, I think I would be very doubtful that I would take very many of those calls, to begin with, but this isn't the time that those calls happen. So I think everybody right now is just kind of, we're all preparing, getting the information from your draft meetings and the combine and free agency meetings and things like that, trying to kind of map out what you're going to do, what options are available to you. But those calls don't happen right now.
Hey, Brian, what's changed? This club used to never leverage contracts, push money out into future years, and you're doing it almost to the max. I mean,
Yeah.
I assume you're going to have to do it for anybody you can to get under the cap. Is that?
Yeah, I think.
And why is that?
I'm blaming it on the pandemic and the salary cap not moving forward like it normally did. I mean, and that's real. But I think at the same time, I think obviously our football team is in kind of a position right now where, like, I think, like to compete for championships, and I don't think we're gonna, try to that's what the main goal is about right now. You know what I mean? And it always has been, and it always, but when the pandemic hit, if we were going to continue to be that way, then we were going to have to do some different things. And I give Russ a lot of credit with his creativity and then some of the things we've been able to do to keep the team together. But, we've always been about championships here. That's all that matters, Super Bowls. And when the pandemic hit, obviously with our team, to be able to keep it together, we were going to have to do things differently. And so we have adjusted.
You recognize that could crash if.
Hopefully there's not
certain
another
things
pandemic.
happen, right?
Yeah. Say it again?
That could crash if certain things happen. You're taking a chance here. You would pushing so much money into the future.
Absolutely. But again, I think, we talked about it a little bit earlier with an earlier question. Like, certainly we expect the cap to go up, but if something like that were to happen again, then we'll have to adjust again and figure it out a different way. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Got time for 2 more?
Combine next week, how are you looking forward to it? Are there different protocols, or will it be like it's been in the past for you guys and your staff?
Yeah, there are some different protocols, but certainly not as extreme as they may have been in the past. So I'm hoping we get back to a little bit of a more normal combine. Obviously, the player interviews are a huge part of what we do, getting to know these players, and then the face-to-face interviews now I think are back, which is going to be very helpful. Although I think we did learn a lot through the Zoom process and our ability to kind of get to know these players through that way. The college generations that are coming up, they're so used to that forum, kind of being able to talk online and through that, I think we hadn't used a ton of that in the past, and we'll use it a ton regardless of the way the combine is now. So to get to know these guys, so I'm really looking forward. I love seeing the players in person compete at the combine. It's very important for us to see how they compete, and not only the results that they get, but to see how they compete there. And it's a big part of what we do. And obviously the medical. The medical is such a huge part of the equation.
Brian, how do you evaluate Amari Rogers' season last year, and does that affect your outlook on how you guys look at receivers in the draft?
It didn't really affect our outlook. I think obviously, Amari as a returner did a pretty nice job for us last year for first-year returner, and we're excited where he goes. I think he didn't get a lot of opportunities as a receiver, and I think that was disappointing. I think for him, but we couldn't ask more for his work ethic, the way he approached it, and I think those opportunities will grow in his second season.